One company that has survived layoffs, strikes, and almost every other kind of business obstacle is celebrating a major milestone. 50 years ago tonight, Kaiser Aluminum opened its Mead plant. And that's where we find News 4's Dave Meany.
Well, Barry, the date was July 11th, 1946. At 11:30 p.m., workers fired up the first pot room at the Mead facility. And since that day, the operation hasn't stopped running for 1 minute. The Mead plant was actually built just over 50 years ago during World War II.
Kaiser Mead was built in 1942 to support the war effort. And that's one of the reasons why Mead and Trentwood were built so far apart, to be less of an attractive strategic location in case of bombing.
The facility pumped out aluminum for airplanes, but after the war, the plant was closed until Henry J. Kaiser came along in 1946. He wanted the facility to be a major player in the aluminum industry.
The people in the industries in the 1940s told Henry that there was no way he could make it. And 50 years later, he definitely proved himself.
At one time, Kaiser grew into the country's second largest aluminum supplier. Despite industry problems in the 1980s, Kaiser is still the largest manufacturing employer in Spokane County.
It's a tough job out there. There isn't very many easy jobs out there.
Elmer McDaniel spent 37 years at Mead before retiring. The job allowed him to support his family.
I tell you, it made an awful close-knit family of mine. And there isn't any one of my kids that would say anything bad about Kaiser. They know what kind of a life they've had, and I know what kind of life my wife and I have had.
Well, I have no remorse about it. I was well satisfied.
Bob Kxly worked at the Mead plant for nearly 48 years.
It's been a very important, place for guys like me to work. And like I say, it provided a livelihood for my family all those years.
In fact, the facility's economic impact to the region is almost too hard to sum up in a few words.
Mead has employed more than 10,000 families in Spokane over the last 50 years and contributed billions and billions to Spokane's economy.
And to give you more of an idea of the economic impact, according to Kaiser Aluminum, the facility is responsible or affects 1 out of every 20 jobs in the region, and that includes vendors, contractors, suppliers. All of that stuff, Barry, is really affecting the Spokane area.
50 years calls for quite a party. What's on the schedule?
Well, that's going to happen on Saturday here at the Mead plant. They're going to have an open house for all former and current workers, and that's when they'll have their little celebration.
All right, thanks, Dave Meany, live at the Mead plant tonight. And in just a few weeks, Kaiser's Trentwood plant will also be celebrating its 50th anniversary.